Good evening and welcome to Estuary TV News. I'm Hugh Riches. Tonight I'll be reviewing the regional press with my colleague Richard Morris, journalist and occasional Guardian columnist. But first, here are the news headlines with James Dunn.
Hello, in the headlines today, firefighters meet to share best practice in rescuing animals, and potential England ice hockey players are being held back by the lack of facilities. Firefighters from around the UK descended on Grimsby for the Chief Fire Officer Association's Animal Rescue Conference. Working alongside partner agencies such as the RSPCA, the event was this year hosted by Humberside Fire and Rescue. Fire crews were able to share best practice in the rescue of animals from livestock to cats and dogs.
Well, the things that we've learned from the incidents we've attended and also specifically from the forum and the conference that we're putting on now, the inherent risks that animals do present us with. Often we all look at animals and think they're nice, small, cuddly things that we all want to embrace and love, but at times when they're in a stressful situation, these are prey animals that want to fight or take flight, and there's a lot of risks inherent to firefighters there, so we can learn a lot on how we deal with them and how we make that safer moving forward.
This is a conference that's happened a number of times. We have specialists from across the country who work in animal rescue, which there's a surprising number of incidents that occur across the UK. So we have colleagues here from across the whole country, including Scotland. I think what's really important about this event is it's a chance to share the best practice, the learning, the talking about the very difficult, challenging incidents that some of our officers have to attend. I think people sometimes consider animal rescue in a way that makes them wonder, well, why does the fire service do that? Some of the incidents can be incredibly challenging, an awful lot of them can be very challenging. The primary purpose for us attending these incidents in the first instance is to make sure that the public are safe. Large animals, particularly obviously if they're stressed, can be a great risk to the public. So we make sure that when we turn up, that we can explain to the public what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we can best make the animals safe, and how we can best resolve an incident quickly and in a way that ideally protects the animal as well.
The North East Lincolnshire village of Healing is having to hire a litter picker to cope with the constant stream of mess discarded by passing motorists. No one's applied for the vacancy advertised by the parish council, who decided at a meeting that they need some help to cope with the problem.
Early in May, the Scouts, the Beavers, some of the parish councillors, parents, children came out on a Sunday morning, terribly wet, and within 2.5 hours we had 45 plastic bags full of litter, and we hadn't done over even half of the village. We also get things discarded out of the windows of passing cars, particularly the location we're in at the present moment on Stalingborough Road. McDonald's, KFC, not an advert for them I'm afraid, in fact just the opposite.
The Grimsby branch of Deafblind UK has joined in celebrations for the charity's 15th birthday. We spoke to an organiser who helps run the group about what the Grimsby branch means to members who attend.
Sport is what we give to each other in a way of chit-chatting, talking about their everyday problems or their everyday issues, problems, just chit-chatting amongst them to feel that they're having a bit of company, meet up with friends that they've seen for the previous month. And we just support the people, we help them to gain the confidence first, but then they gain trust in you. So the trust then comes when they walk through the door, they're able to join a group.
4 ice hockey players feel their futures are in jeopardy because of the closure of Grimsby Ice Rink ahead of trials for the England team. The rink has been closed for nearly a month since the cooling system malfunctioned, and users were told they would have an answer on what the future holds this week. However, the decision has now been delayed until councillors can discuss the issue in a cabinet meeting later this month.
The major problem we've got is that we need to register players for the hockey teams by the end of this month. We also need to book games, away and home games and things like that. And the other important thing is we've got 4 under-15 players trialling out for England at the beginning of August, and they're actually getting no training.
Record crowds visited Waddington Air Show this weekend. However, organisers announced that there will be no show at Waddington next year because of work being done on the runway.
We would love to have an air show here next year, but the state of the runway, although perfectly safe at the moment, has deteriorated to the point where we can ignore the problem no longer, and we need to do some major structural work on the runway, which is going to take in the region of 59 weeks.
That's all from me. Bye for now.
I'm with Richard Morris, reporter here on Estuary TV News and occasional travel writer for The Guardian, to have a look at this week's papers. Richard.
Hello, lovely to see you again.
Well, very good to see you. What have you found first for us?
Well, I found a couple of stories, first of all, within the Grimsby Telegraph from today's Friday, 4th of July issue. We've first of all got the lost parrot that gate crashed a lesson at St Martin's Preparatory School in Grimsby.
Right.
Do you want to hear all about that?
I do, please, Richard, yes.
They say that, these birds get incredibly intelligent and actually know exactly where to go. And apparently that is the case, because this one-year-old African grey left its home, flew back in to St Martin's and actually managed to land on the windowsill during a lesson, and then flew off a few days later and managed to find its way home again.
Did it ask any interesting questions during the class?
I don't believe so. The caption is polygon, but I don't think it said anything. It was presumably during a maths lesson.
I think that, well, I'd hope so. I think that's a headline writer taking it a little too far,
yes,
isn't it? Unless it specifically was a geometry lesson. The pictures here, not easy to see, but the picture, there we are, very definitely an African grey, which are apparently the most intelligent kind of parrots.
Well, it probably could answer a question about maths then in that case.
Absolutely. It could tell us all about Pythagoras and hypotenuses and things like that.
Indeed.
OK, but anyway, the parrot is back safe and home and preferably conversational.
Indeed. Well, that's what we always want from parrots. Secondly, I've managed to find a rather upsetting story about charity shop thieves who managed to steal £215 from a charity shop till for St Andrew's Hospice in Grimsby. I mean, it's one of these awful things. I mean, you read the stories of the people who are taking part and volunteering because they've personally, been affected by the hospice or the good work that it does, and you see these people, who've had, possibly a few days worth of
takings
stolen
from them,
completely
yes.
stolen from them, and especially when it's such a good charity like St Andrew's Hospice, it's just devastating.
Well, St Andrew's Hospice is pretty much the only charity in Grimsby, isn't it? It's got a monopoly on the organisation. £215 stolen from a charity shop. Was it because the charity shop security was less effective than other shops? Why would thieves charge a charity shop other than out of more than dishonesty and greed, but malice as well?
I would imagine that it's just, a lot of charity shops basically struggle to have volunteers, and I would imagine there weren't enough volunteers in the shop at the time. Someone just walked up to the till, wanted to see if it was open, and that's what happened.
A very cruel crime of opportunity.
Indeed.
A political story.
A political story indeed. The Louth Leader is reporting that a primary election will be held to replace Peter Tapsell at the next general election in 2015 for Louth and Horncastle, he is of course record-breaking and father of the house.
He is father of the house.
Indeed.
In fact, and his father of the house is the longest-serving member without a gap. But
Indeed.
he has had a gap, and before that he was a member as well. So his total, I think he first went into the House of Commons during the ministry of Benjamin Disraeli. He's going to be leaving a big hole. He's been a character in local politics for such a long time.
Indeed, and they say that he will not be replaced by Boris Johnson. He is not on the candidacy list, because that was originally the rumour around Louth, that it might be Boris Johnson.
Well, it is an extremely safe Conservative seat.
Indeed.
I think it's the fourth or fifth safest seat in the country for the Tories, and it must be very tempting for any aspirant politicians who want to pretty much can assume that they've got if they want it and they're young enough, that they've got a half-century tenure in the House of Commons if they can take Louth and Horncastle.
Indeed. So this primary election will be held in Louth on July the 28th, and the local Conservative Association is currently sifting through over 100 applicants, I believe it said. So yeah, A lot of people want, yeah, more than 100 hopefuls, so a lot of people want to be taking part in this.
What do we think of this use of the word primary? This is a very American usage.
That's
of,
exactly what I was thinking when I read this. I thought this seemed very odd. That seems to be a very American system, because usually it's done by registered local party members, isn't it?
Of course.
I know that at the moment Labour Party members in Grimsby are being asked to choose the successor for Austin Mitchell, and I thought when I read, primary election, for Louth and Horncastle, I thought that seemed a little bit American.
Well, I think strictly in the American sense, because it's only party members,
Yes.
It's more of a caucus than a primary.
Yes,
in old-fashioned American parlance. Yesterday, of course, was the 4th of July, Independence
Indeed.
Day. Unfinished business, I think.
Yes.
What's next? You've got
we've got residents' anger over flooding. Now, this has been taking place. Apparently, Eastfield Road in Louth has had persistent problems since the flooding earlier on this year. They've actually even got sort of sewage and toilet paper and other kinds of things going into their street, which is lovely. Apparently Anglian Water can't sort of give a very specific time on fixing yet. They're just saying between August and December, which doesn't seem to be, if you've got raw sewage going up in your street, you don't really want that for that length of time. And a local resident is saying here that, they're having to put sandbags in their garage in order to stop all the water from flowing in.
Well, August to December, that takes us well back into flooding season,
Exactly.
heavy weather season again at the beginning of the winter. Has Anglian Water given any reason or excuse for this appalling delay?
Not really. I mean, the only thing in the article that's remotely from a spokesperson, they just say we are genuinely sorry that periods of very heavy rain cause flooding to customers, etc., etc.
Well,
we are truly sorry for distress caused.
I'm sure they're truly sorry.
I'm sure they are.
Would they? I'd take it that they're not charging those people for their water since they're not providing the service.
Well, apparently so. Apparently they are. Ben and Kate Williamson, who've lived there, say that. They're stuck with them. You can't change them like, you can electricity or gas or even telephone supply. You can't just say, well, you're providing a terrible service. They're saying they're stuck with these people. They're still having to pay them every month, and that their street is flooding.
So effectively, Anglian Water are charging for a service that they're not providing,
Indeed.
but they are truly sorry.
They are very sorry about it,
Well,
and they do want to fix it between August and December.
Poor dears.
Yes.
A Louth story now, moving
Yes,
back down
indeed.
to Lincolnshire.
Fresh doubts over the cattle market plans. Apparently, the full council meeting on July the 23rd will be asking council members to decide over the fate of the site, whether or not it's going to be sold off to developers or not.
Yes.
The only problem is, and what this story reports, is that they're being asked to vote at a time when they don't really know the full consequences of voting yes or no either way.
So the councillors have not been informed as to the issue over which they are taking a vote.
Indeed. Mayor Leonard has said that how can ELDC, full council, take a pragmatic and informed view when the political... Oh, that's not the right quote, excuse me. It was Councillor Daniel Simpson who said there are an awful lot of things we won't know when we are asked to make our decision.
And that's East Lindsey District Council.
East Lindsey District Council.
That is, it does divide Louth. Some think that it would be wonderful to have a supermarket there so that there is an access to cheaper goods and product. Others think that it'll take business away from the smaller shops in the centre of town.
Indeed.
The arguments are quite complicated, aren't they? Because
Yes.
there's one that's sort of preserving an ancient way of doing things, not ancient, but old way of doing things, and another which would give people the choice of going to other shops,
absolutely.
cheaper shops. One more story, very quickly. The students have celebrating a double film achievement.
Indeed, indeed. Now, I wish at Estuary that we could do stuff like this, but apparently it's not in the budget.
Right. Very quickly, what's the story,
Pupils
Richard?
are celebrating a double film glory. They managed to go to Paris and the British Film Institute in London. And they're budding filmmakers from the local area, and they were invited
from
along.
St Margaret's Church of England Primary School. And
Indeed.
That's all we have. Thank you very much, Richard.
Thank you very much.
No more time for us tonight, I'm afraid. If you do have a story for us, then please email news@estuary.tv or contact us via Twitter or Facebook, or pick up the phone and call 01472 315561. Until next time, goodbye.